All right, on a 2005 Chevy Venture minivan, my spare tire wouldn't come down because the mounting on it was rusted. What it is when you take your spare tire, all it is pull your kit out. You've got a screwdriver bar here that goes into there. Put your wrench onto here and you spin it, and that's cranks down a cable under here, which your spare tire is up against that surface area right there. But when you crank it like I did, the cable comes loose and comes down, but the tire stays hanging there, and actually it comes loose about 2 inches, and then it dangles around. And you got this assembly here, which is a lock, and you got to get that loose first because that gets jammed up in there. This will come out just like this, but you won't have anything. It won't drop down. You play with this up and down a little bit, and then that breaks loose, and then that'll come down. But what happened on mine is this part was still rusted up against that part, and so when you looked up, your tire was hanging there and you saw this in there, but it wouldn't drop any more than about 2 inches or so, and you could rock the tire back and forth and everything, and it still wouldn't do anything. I finally got it loosened up enough to where, or got it hanging down and got a screwdriver behind it like this, and this surface here to right here, I was able to get a screwdriver there and rock that, and then both sides and that, and then I cracked that rusty mounting surface right there, because this goes right up into there, and my problem was that this was rusted up together and the tire was right here rocking, and it wouldn't do any more. This whole thing here would allow it to rock. I sprayed some lube up through the tire holes and got a little bit of lube in behind that and this and that, and let that soak for a couple days. But I thought this ring inside would come loose, but obviously you see it doesn't. This is all still one piece. But my part here, and then it was rusted on this surface right here. So once I played with it, or screwdrivered at it and wrenched at it and finally got it, and it cracked loose, and then the whole thing just finally cracked and dropped down to my slack, which I made my slack was only 1.5 inches, so the tire didn't fall onto the floor or anything at that point. Got that cracked loose, pulled that out, and then I scrape it down, scrape off the rust surfaces on both of them. Now I'm going to put some anti-seize lube on those surfaces and then put the tire back up so that when I need a spare tire I can get it down. But this is something that's not visible in the other videos for this friggin' car, and they show other versions but not this version here. So what you have for your safety lock is this assembly here, and those things there, those little pins inside, you see how that rocks up and down, and you got to get that loose that way. And what happens is to crack that loose and get that out is you slide actually a jack under here. When I do slide a jack under here, lift up against the tire, start cranking your cable out a little bit, and then while the cable comes loose but the tire is still held up tight with the jack, with the floor jack, just enough to keep it, just tension on to lift the back of the car a little bit, but just tension on. Then you just reach up here and fiddle with the white assembly, and then you get this rocking up and down, because this actually separates inside of itself. It rocks that 1/2 inch in there, and you get that crack loose, and then you can pull the jack out and then bring the tire, and then you bring this, and then this white thing will come loose from this. And once that comes loose from there, you're 3/4 of the way home, and that should be enough to drop the tire. But if it's like mine was rusted at this point, so I was still hanging. But I properly, once you jack up the tire and release the cable and then release this, then the whole thing comes down, the tire comes down onto the flat ground, and you've rocked this through the center hole of the tire, and then you pull the cable out of the tire and you're loose. So, but my problem was no video ever talked about this thing being rusted up in there, and what to do when your white lock comes loose from the hole, but you're still stuck and dangling here. So that's what the rest of it looks like, that you may have to break loose for the rest. But that's up into there like that. And my problem was I was like this, and my tire was still sitting right here rocking and dangling and doing all this shit, but I couldn't get it to crack loose. It wouldn't come down because these two surfaces were still rusted. Boom, got it loose finally, and you just gotta clean those off, put some anti-seize so it doesn't rust up again on you, and you'll be good to go for next time. There you go.